BATJAC J.W. coming to you right here. We got another beautiful specimen for you to video, or for us to look at. Me to video, you to look at. It is a Browning high power. We got a hold of this for the... somebody lent this to us for video sake, so I didn't want to pass that opportunity up and everything, so... Really cool. It's a vintage 1968 or 69. It's a T series, so it's got that really cool T prefix right there on the serial number, and the collector's market goes crazy for that. These are definitely one of the sought after ones. This one here, this style, and I've got one that we videoed. We shot it outside, did some tabletop videos on it and everything, so didn't want to pass up an opportunity to get another one here and show it to you. Belgium made, completely, all Belgium, and you'll see some where they'll say Belgium made, but then over here like assembled in somewhere else like Portugal or something like that. Now those are different. There's so many variations of these things because so many different places made them, countries made them. It's a gun that fought on both sides of the war during World War II. Very interesting how you can see a lot of those that are marked differently, and you never know what could be on that slide right there. So it's this one's got all the cool features that I think. This style, this exact kind of model of one goes back with me quite a ways, because many years ago I saw one of these. It was for sale, and just the price at the time. I mean, this was had to been 8-9 years ago. The price was just at that time even outrageous. These things are pretty pricey these days if you can find one, at least this particular model. They're just insane. They're skyrocketed. But I just was not able to finance it and get it for my collection. Of course, when I moved out to the desert, I located one at a gun show, and I ended up picking up that one for myself. So these are just this particular one, the 1968 or 69 T series high power. The bluing on it, there again, most of them have this really dark, rich bluing that is just like, reminds me of like the Colt Royal blue. It really does. They're gorgeous. So some of the other features, and you can see the markings here, like that's kind of strange. I've heard it being referred to as like a pineapple. It's kind of interesting. The pineapple there, and I think there's another one down here or something like that. There's some other markings there. As I say, W, is it? I don't know. Can't read it too good. But there's a bunch of different markings on it, and spots that are kind of interesting, like on the frame there were that. Now, you'll notice that on the chamber here, if it'll focus in there, you see this line going through? Through my understanding, they made the barrel in two pieces, and they put them together, and that's where it joins in together. And part of the reason for that, when we disassemble it, and we'll take the slide down for you. And how you take these things down is you just kind of, this is your lever, the safety lever, and it kind of locks up right there, and you just kind of push this out. And you got all this kind of stuff going out. Now, I will make myself look like an amateur because I always struggle with removing this right here. I always do. So, or I mean, putting it back together is where I struggle. And you got to kind of remember the way it goes, because look at it. And something that was passed on to me when you do stuff like this is, if you need to, take a picture. It's even more easier now to take a picture where you got your cell phones that'll do it. Not from like my era where you had to go down to the pharmacy and go get it developed. But you got to look at the way it goes back, because it only goes back one way. And I struggle with putting them back. So I'll take out the barrel here. It does have a little oil on it, so let me wipe that down so we don't get a kind of a screwy video. But again, you can see, so why they did this was, from my understanding, was you have all this other stuff going on here, the locking lugs and everything. So you can see that kind of a thickness of metal that they would need to start with to trim it down. So they didn't want to waste all this metal up here, because if they're just going to have to turn it down, you know, where they're starting with like a stock of steel or whatever like that, they made it in 2 pieces, so that way they could use less metal, taking off less metal here, and then they just put it together, and you can see where it all is. Now some people may say, well, that's kind of funky or whatnot, but if you look through the track record, that's one cool thing, is look at the track record of these things. Its record is amazing. How many different countries, different type of special forces that used this pistol, and this pistol paved the way for those little fancy gizmo pistols out of plastic and stuff that you love today. A lot of it stems from this baby right here. And it's really cool, the design. Before we put it back together, it's really cool how it works. It's different because imagine John Browning is starting over. He's starting from scratch now. He sold his patent rights, the old 1911. We brought out the old Colt 1911 right there, one of my favorites. That's got some cool history. Remember, I forget who it was, but the fellow that sold that to me, it was a fellow that shot it over in Camp Pendleton, stuff like that, during World War II, and had some customizations done to it to appease him. It's such a really cool gun. I love the history on it, and that's what really gets me more than anything, is the history on these things, more so than the monetary value. I'd rather have something that was more personalized, and somebody had done something to it, somebody in history, or going back that many years, that maybe this fella did a certain thing to it. Maybe he checkered a certain area or something like that to accommodate him. And to me, that stuff is really cool. It's more cool than the price tag. So, all right, back to it. You got this little tilting thing right here, and it lives right in there. And what it does is it tilts. And what happens is, on the frame, when you pull the trigger, you'll see that comes up right there. You see that little stem that pops up, and what that does is it runs into that bar, and that bar now tilts down and contacts the sear point here, which then releases the hammer. Kind of interesting design. In a sense, it really is ingenious. I mean, how would you come up with something like that? So really neat. I know the early ones of these high powers, the extractor was internal, much like the 1911. Later on, they went to this external one, and it's held in by the roll pin there. And then this roll pin is holding all these things together. So, and then you still got the locking lugs, and some things are different, some things are the same as far as the 1911 goes. It does have a magazine disconnect. A lot of people curse that, and before we put it back together, you'll see it. It's right down there. As the trigger moves, you can see it bumping up and down there in the frame of the gun. That's the magazine disconnect, and how that works is it's basically a shoe that's sticking out, and when the magazine goes in, it pushes the shoe in and allows the things to work. So some people, a lot of people, that's the biggest criticism of it, but like for me, it's the way it was built, it's the way it was designed. I don't want to go hacking in there and removing things that somebody that knows 100 times better than I do about stuff like this, about designing and building firearms. So I tend to leave them, and when I go and buy high powers, I make sure that nobody's messed with that, because if they've altered that, I mean, I don't know. I'd rather it be stock. That's just my opinion. But it also does kind of hang up the magazine. You notice the magazine doesn't free flow. I've seen people talk about that. That is actually something that the European, that era and that time wanted, because they wanted to be able to have the person retain the magazine and then put another one through there and whatnot. So these are all things that were purposely done. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the slide back together. Like I said, hopefully I won't fumble with it too much, and if you guys remember, look at the thing and the way it goes in. There's that side, and then there's that side. It goes that side. Hopefully I won't fumble with it too much. There we go. Alright, that wasn't too bad. That goes that way, and we'll put the slide back on. Actually, check this out. Oops. Now we're dropping things everywhere. The grips, I don't know if you'll see it. The grips on the other side are red, and that's part of the collector's value and all that stuff that people like. And you got to be careful. I don't want to scratch up the frame and everything like that. So I let them down slow so you're not jarring anything. And so, and again, you can see, you know, that it's not going to work unless you have the magazine in, and then it'll go. Okay. Now, interesting to do is you'll see the magazines where you'll see that little scuff right there, and that's from that magazine disconnect running into it. It does have really itty bitty sights. But I think the low profile sights, even though they're really hard to see and hard to get a pinpoint, and the adjustables are so much better as far as function, but I don't think they look as good. To me, this pistol looks the best like that. And I'm kind of that one of those weird guys that I like the way things look. I don't really care about the function or anything. I just, as long as they look cool, I'm interested. Of course, I brought out mine. One of mine is the old military surplus model right here, and that one's very close in some ways. Of course, the finish is completely different. Here we pulled off one of the original grips too. I had this in the stock room, and you can see on the back it's red. And I don't know what the whole story of why they did that, but that was something they were doing, which is painting them red. And so they kind of vary in color. Now, they're not, I gotta admit this, and I hate to say this, but the collector market for these things, and people paying hundreds of dollars for these, is kind of pointless, because it's the most flimsy, soft, crappy wood you know you can buy. Now you can go on there and actually now buy better grips for a fraction of the cost. You can pick up something like this, and of course they're not red or anything on the back, but well, you could, then again, you could paint them. But anyway, you can pick these up for, like, you know, 25, 30 bucks on eBay all day long, and they actually look really good. In fact, that's what I have on this one, mine. Yeah, I got that. So they look good. They're a little wide, and that's going to be the nature of it. I don't know what it is, but the original stock ones, they're somewhere they're thinner. Somehow they've thinned them down. This one, it's not dramatically wider, but it does have a little bit more. It fills the hand out a little bit more. So anyway, there you have it. Just wanted to bring it out to you, kind of you know, talk about it, chit chat. Not so much as a quick video, but something just to have fun with and check out. So, as the words of the late Gunny would say, quit your frowning, grab your brownie.